My intention when I'm working with accounting professionals is to work with them to double their income while working half the time. A lot of what I have found for myself, as well as the professionals that I work with, is our training has prepared us really well for that thing that we do. However, we don't always know some of the business skills that really allow us to have a business that can grow without taking more time from us. We end up trading dollars for hours. What I've seen is that some of the pieces that are missing is how to be able to price your services for value as opposed to selling dollars for hours. Also, how to have sales conversations to enroll or engage new clients into your practice. Those were the missing pieces that I have, and I really took a deep dive into it. That's what I see with accounting professionals also. Because of the work that I've been doing since 2009 as far as business coaching, I've developed a system that has 5 key components to it. It looks at who is your ideal client that you work best with. It's not simply lawyers. It might also look at, aside from the demographics, the psychographics. What is the makeup or the characters and personalities of your ideal client as well?
So important.
After we look at who your ideal client is, then we look at systematizing your business in order for it to have workflows, be able to also articulate how you take an attorney that you work with from where they are when they first meet you to that end result of being able to free them up in order for them to be able to work at their highest level too. So what are your systems, your workflows? Part of what that does is it allows you to articulate how that works when you're in an engaging conversation. It also lets you inform your marketing and the direction of your website, possibly, with being able to articulate it is something that separates you from most other accounting professionals because now you have a system. The part that we're taking a deep dive into today is being able to package your service, or what's called productizing your service, where you're bundling different components of what you're doing together as opposed to offering a la carte one-off services. After that, I look at value pricing. Let's price your service based upon the end result of what you are going to help your ideal client achieve, as opposed to how much time it takes. This starts to separate you from trading dollars for hours. It really positions your knowledge and your expertise as opposed to commoditizing your time. Then we are going to look at, where do you find your clients? Where do you promote? How do they become aware of what you offer? That way you're no longer a best kept secret. And then the last part is how to do high ticket sales conversations, how to be able to have a value conversation, which we'll go a little bit into at the end of our conversation today. And then I'm going to give you a free gift that actually lays it all out for you as well if you stick around. So that is the 5 key points: is knowing your ideal client, how to be able to know what your system is, being able to package your services, bundle them, pricing them for value, being able to know where to promote it, and then having enrolling conversations that focus on value as opposed to having to pitch your service.
So this isn't really what Loren just articulated. I really can't express enough is how important that, whether you never talk to us again, that you think about those 5 steps. I talk to accounting professionals every day. I've talked to almost 70, 80% of the people on this phone. And what I find is that, it's not difficult to get a client being an accounting professional because there are so many customers, right? Everyone needs accounting services. But how do you get a stream, a workflow, a channel of customers that are joyous and satisfying to you? And you really have to go through that process, because what happens is you need to, the more you specify, the more you niche, the more you understand who that client is, not just who they are demographically, but psychographically, that you work well, the easier it is to rise up and be that trusted advisor. So I really encourage folks to heed Loren's guidance and follow her ways. So let's dive into it, Loren. And let's talk about the kind of the first thing, which is packages. And I sort of going to paraphrase what we talked about yesterday, but we talked about it, how kind of a package can kind of shift the decision for a law firm, right? Because they instead of comparing them to other firms, are sort of saying, okay, now how do you work? So what makes package services so client attractive? Like, why is that lawyer, that law firm coming in, and instead of talking to a person, you're talking about your workflow? Why is that so attractive?
The main thing that I see is that it first of all separates you from an hourly rate. They're no longer watching the clock, and attorneys do that a lot. They're used to the billable hour. They're no longer watching a clock. It frees them up from being able to having you track your time and reporting to them. It's focusing on an outcome. This way it starts to separate you from that hourly rate, gets you into value-based pricing. But the really important thing is that having packages really is geared to their specific wants, needs, and desires. We'll go a little bit more into that later on as well. And when you do that, the packages position you as a trusted advisor. There's so much conversation right now going on in the accounting profession about shifting away from compliance to advisory services. Your packages offer you that. Therefore, they get peace of mind when they are investing in you, that you are the expert that can really help to solve their problems. It gives them that peace of mind. But to recognize that not all of your clients are equal. They have different needs. They might have different size firms. Other things might have different complexities. So I want you to think about, when you first consider packages, it's similar to buying a car. You can buy a Hyundai, you can buy a Volvo, or you could buy a Tesla. Now, all three of those are going to get you from point A to point B. However, the Hyundai is a basic car. So it will do that, but with the minimal features and luxuries. However, it will efficiently get you there. Some of your clients are going to just want the basics from you. They might be more price sensitive. Now, with the Volvo is someone that is more concerned about safety. They are risk adverse. They want to make sure that their family is well protected. A lot of your clients are going to be Volvo buyers, where they really want the basics, but they want certain other features to be able to mitigate risk on their end and make sure that everything is done that they need to be able to really take their mind off of the bookkeeping and accounting services and focus on really doing law for their clients. And then the third one is the Tesla. The Tesla is for the people that also want to get from point A to point B, but they want to do it in a way that makes a statement about the fact that they want luxury and they want to be environmentally sensitive. So think about your clients. Some of them will be Hyundais, most of them will be Volvos, and then some of them will be Teslas, where they want some specific key features that the other ones don't want or need. And you want to be able to create those three types of packages, and we'll touch base upon that a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I want to just come back to this a little bit,
Yeah.
because from my perspective, and again, I have a really unique vantage point, because so what I do at LeanLaw is every day I'm on the phone and I'm talking to people, and I'm talking to accounting professionals that are potentially representing a law firm, or I'm talking to law firm. And the key point is that the law firms don't want to hear about reconciliation or payroll. I mean, they know that you need to do that. But these packages create an opportunity for you to walk through the workflows and walk through how you actually interact with them. And I think, because I wanted to get back, Loren, a little bit and talk about why packages make you the trusted advisor. And it's one, you said, is that it caters to them. They can see themselves, right? When you buy that Tesla, they see themselves in the Tesla, and I'm driving the Tesla, and they have that vision of themselves. But the law firm can see themselves utilizing the package. And that's your opportunity. We're going to talk about the conversation in a second, so I'm going to segue that. But I wanted you to get your perspective on a little bit more on the why the packages sort of perceive, why does that help that person be perceived as an expert?
The part that's really wonderful and excites me so much about the packages is that there are the things that you do, it's the compliance pieces of it. However, that's not where your highest value is. Your highest value is on what you know, what's called your intellectual property. It's what is in your brain, those insights that you have, the wisdom that you've gained, your life experiences that you actually bring to the table and how you work with someone. It emphasizes your intellectual property, what you know, more than what you do. Your clients, as you were mentioning, Jonathan, aren't really concerned that much with the tactical things of what you do day in and day out. They want to focus on the outcome and the benefits. Your packages get to do that. The other thing that's really great about packages is that there are some services that you might do for your clients. You simply don't know how to charge for them. And those things get built into the packages in order to never have to give work away for free. Plus, they also deal with scope creep.
Yeah, so let me give you an example, just of what I see. So
Sure.
in LeanLaw, we have something called the Ready to Bill report. And what it is it takes work in progress and it mashes it up with, what's the receivable balance, when the last payment was, and what the trust balance is. And so in a package, you might have, and we're going to get to different types of package, but you might have a component that every month for say you're dealing with a small law firm, that you send this report to them twice a month. It would take 5-10 minutes, but it's your mid-month report. And what it shows is where you're trending from a cash flow standpoint relative to work in progress, who paid you, what you're concerned about trust accounting, and any big payments. Well, how do you charge for that? Are you going to charge them 12 minutes for that? Or does it become a feature in a package? And when you're then talking to them, and we're going to talk about this, the sort of the sales of practice, but now you can talk about workflow and saying that in this package, twice a month, I send you this, live report, and I'll highlight these things. And it becomes this conversation point. So not only are you helping as the lawyer saying, wow, that's awesome, I'm going to get this great data, every 15 days, but you're then showing expertise that you understand what they need, and that sort of rises you up. So that's kind of an explicit example of how this ready to bill work in progress report in LeanLaw can be pulled into Excel, quickly looked at, sent over via email, and now you're the trusted advisor. Okay, let's talk about the most, I think, harrowing part of any accounting professional, which is how do you ever charge in a package when you don't know what the heck you're getting into, right? So I constantly hear this. I have a client right now, it's like, the books are a nightmare, we got to get the books into order, and you're sort of sitting on the outside trying to assess it, and like, what's the scope of this is going to be? Like, you can't even get into the packages because you have this slobbered up, horrible part of accounts. How do we work with the assessment piece so then you can get into that sort of regimented packages price?
Right.
What's your thoughts there?
Part of what I feel is that it's so important to slow down the engagement process. Instead of speeding it up and get them signed on into your regular monthly program very, very quickly, you end up with finding things out about their back end that you just didn't know. They didn't even realize that they had 5 charge cards instead of 3. They only told you about 3, or maybe there was another bank account that you found out about that they forgot to mention. And it becomes a mess. Now you're dealing with scope creep, or it's so much more going on. And the books have problems that they didn't even think were problems because they don't know. This isn't what they do all day long. What you want to do is to slow down the process. This is more like you want to have a couple of dates before you go into marriage. What I do with the accounting clients that I work closely with is, instead of having an engagement conversation and going right into some type of monthly workflow, you want to first enroll them into doing an assessment with you. An assessment so often is something you do for free anyway. Let's now go ahead and separate this from everything and have you get paid for doing this assessment. When you enroll them into an assessment, it accomplishes a couple of things. One, you're not doing any work yet. You're just looking at the books. You're getting an idea as to what's going on with cash flow. some of the behind the things, you're really coming from the position of a trusted advisor, and you're getting paid for work that you would normally do for free. They can actually then take, say you do a 36-point assessment, you're looking at 36 different areas, then you give them a report that shows them the findings of what's working well and what needs to be done differently to correct those issues. Now they have a choice of, do they want to take this and maybe give it to their in-house bookkeeper? Do they want to do it themselves? Do they want to outsource this? Do they want to have you do the cleanup? If they want to have you do the next piece, then you can enroll them into the cleanup and really get the cleanup started. When you are doing the cleanup yourself, you're getting a real handle on what's going on in their business, not only from that assessment point of view, but from a day-to-day operations point of view, as well as you're figuring out, are they an ideal client? Do they get things to you in a timely manner, or do they ghost you where you have to keep on nagging them over and over and over, waiting for things? This lets you figure out, do you really want to work with this type of person or not? Is it a fit? So do the assessment first, that's a standalone. Then when you do the cleanup, that can be a standalone process also, where once the cleanup is done, they can either choose to go on their own and once again, work with somebody else, do it in-house, do it on their own, or they can choose to move into a monthly recurring package with you. But by slowing down this process, you avoid scope creep. You get to pass the honeymoon period of figuring out, are they really ideal client, or are they someone who is non-responsive and you have to ask repeatedly for information, so it's holding you up and you really don't want to work with someone like that? Or is it that you found things that you couldn't have seen ahead of time and now you know how to create a package which avoids scope creep and really lines out their exact needs and how you can really help them get to that next level? That's what I suggest, is slowing down the engagement process.
So there's 2 points.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes some of the accounting community gets it and some are just learning it. But when you think of that first assessment, it's not just the data. So a lot of people fixate and say, show me your QuickBooks file, or show me this or that. And you have to go beyond that. If you're going to productize it, if you're going to carve it out and say, this initial assessment is a thing you buy, you need to look at workflow. You need to look at what is creating the data. And in small law firms, you're talking about multiple people. Now, maybe it's the trust accounting workflow. Maybe it's their invoicing workflow. Maybe it's how they collect money from clients in AR and AR management. And so the question becomes, so if you can look not just at the data, which is only one snapshot of the overall picture, because even if you clean up the data and they keep following worst practices, you're going to be constantly cleaning up, or maybe they have old tools and you need to make a recommendation. So it's not just, hey, here's the data and you should do these 6 things with your data. It's like, here's tools and here's 3 options with tools. Here's workflow changes that you need to make. And the idea is that if there's value enough in that, because I know everyone's saying, how do I get someone to pay me for that, right? How do I get someone who's not conditioned to pay me for an assessment that's doing it? And there's 2 reasons. I have 2 kind of counters to that, which is, one is, if you articulate enough value in what they get out of it and it's a standalone thing, they'll pay for it because they'll see the value of it. And 2 is, you can also hitch that into engagement. So you can say, hey, listen, if you buy my, if we engage long-term, I will discount out this assessment and build it into my monthly, I'll discount it out and put some money in my long-term cost. And it's sort of like, the best example I can give you is, if you buy a mountain bike, it costs $150 or $100 to rent a mountain bike for the day, to go try it out, to ride it, to go through it. And you're like, that's a lot of money. And they say, but if you buy it, we'll give you the $150 towards the purchase of the price. And that model works because I want to go try the bike. It's a big enough investment that I don't want to do it. So I want to make 2 points, which is, you've got to include workflow. You've got to include tools and architecture as part of this front-end assessment. And the second piece is, if it's got value, people will pay for it. I really believe that.
And I put in there the chat, how much would you charge for an initial assessment? I would love to see, what some people here think that that initial assessment would be worth, because so many accounting professionals give it away for free. They're doing it anyway. And like you said, Jonathan, I think that it has so much value. It's just being overlooked because it's what everybody else is doing.
Well, and I mean, I can cite a very specific example of a law firm that I worked with two accounting professionals that they wanted, and this is the hard part, they wanted to fly the plane and change the engines at the same time. So the accounting professionals were trying to extract out all this data from the firm and try to fix it all. So they're trying to learn and fix at the same time, which is super hard, super hard to learn and fix at the same time, because you don't know what the fix is because you haven't learned what the problem is. So you really have to slow down, to Loren's point, and get that client. And if they can't do it or won't do it, you can adopt depending on the opportunity and where you are in the business. But the idea is that you want to start with that place. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's move on and talk about something slightly different.
I'm going to go right into it. Susan said that I was going to ask you that her initial thought is $350 because it's 3 hours of her time. Now you're connecting what you do with time, but what is the value that they get from having this information?
Yes, Susan, what's the value?
The value. So Susan, what do you think the value is of once they have this assessment from you? It's like you being the physician and they're coming to you with back pain. And instead of you saying, oh, let's go schedule surgery, you're now really looking at where is their back pain originating to really not just relieve the symptom, but to understand the cause in order to then not have that back pain any longer.
Yeah. I mean, think about like a doctor, your example, like, if someone goes into surgery, they go and meet with the physician in advance of the surgery for the surgeon to do, and they do all this diagnostic work to get to what you need surgery now. And we're all like, conditioned that we would always expect to pay this doctor for that. Why wouldn't? And because we're getting value, we're getting their expertise and their intellect to help us make this decision: should we do surgery or not? And that's, I think, too many times accounting professionals don't rise themselves up to say, this is this huge value that I'm offering to the law firm or to the client.
And so really quickly, Carla said 350 to 2,000. My sense from what I've seen is anywhere from 350 to about 1,500. So you're absolutely right in that great ballpark, Carla. And the value, Susan, is from really understanding what the client values as opposed to what you value from the work. So we'll go a little bit more into that also, but it's in one of the previous webinars that Jonathan and I have done, is how to have a value conversation.
Yeah, so the one comment I'd say is it also could change in size and scope of firm. So it could be tied and tethered to, how much billings are, number of people. If you have a solo professional, it's less of an investigative process than it is to a large law firm. So, you mentioned this idea of money leaks, and I want you to, this is sort of this hamster wheel of, I'm doing all this work and not necessarily getting paid for it. And so help us understand the definition of money leaks relative to this, and how do packages then help you address that? Sure.
This is about thinking, what are some of the things that you do for your clients where you don't ask them to pay you for it? And I'll go into that list in a couple minutes, but think about, where are you on hold for customer service with QBO because you have a problem that came up with a specific client account and you need their customer service to be able to help you figure that out? Or where did you all of a sudden find some that they didn't tell you about, and it's a 15-minute fix, so instead of having them pay you for that fix, you're just doing it and you're writing it off because you don't want them to think that you're going to nickel and dime them. All these little, or maybe they have a question that they're calling you about, and you're taking time away now from something else that you're working on, breaking your concentration to be able to answer their question and then going back to your work. Those are all the little places where you might be giving away some information, might be doing some work on behalf of a customer, or being able to just take time away to be able to answer customers' quick needs. you simply aren't getting paid for those or knowing how to charge for those. So the packages start to help fix that. What you think about with packages is you don't want it to be just one package option and then either they're going to work with you and sign on to that package or they're going to move on to someone else. What you want to do is create 3 different packages in order to recognize that different clients have different needs. Like we said before, the Hyundai, the Volvo, and the Tesla. The way to get started, I'm giving you the framework. So if you're taking notes, please pick up your pen right here or get ready with your keyboard. First, you want to know who is your ideal client. Do you have a niche or a specialty? And start to figure out and hone in on your ideal client. I do that the very first thing with my call. Just yesterday, I had 2 new clients. Each one of them, I went through who their ideal client is. We found some nuggets that they never ever would have figured out because of them working with a particular client, and they never would have seen it on their own. But it was so valuable. So start to figure out who your ideal client is and what's the benefits of them working with you. After that, you want to start to assess what is that client's wants, needs, and desires. The needs are the basics that they need to have to be able to be operational. The wants are the things that are necessary information. However, they cannot get that information on their own because they either don't have the time, the resources, or the skill set. The desires are something that they want to achieve in the future. They don't believe that they can achieve it with where things are now. Start to assess those things when you're doing your initial consults with clients, because these questions will begin to show your expertise, the value of what you have to offer, and it will answer the question of what is the value of me doing an initial assessment, of me doing the cleanup work, of me doing the monthly books, and it has nothing to do with time. After you define what your client's wants, needs, and desires are, the third step is to start to list all your services on a spreadsheet. That could be the very, very little ones that you typically write off, as well as the more complicated one. But just dump all of your different services in a spreadsheet. Then what you want to do is start to group some of those services together that solve a particular problem that your client tends to have. And there's some things that are unique to attorneys that other professionals wouldn't have when they're hiring a bookkeeper. Really start to hone in on what are those specific things that attorneys need either now or as their firm continues to grow that you can go ahead and solve. This helps you start to package or bundle your services together. Now that you have that and you start to group them together, you design 3 packages. I see them as being tiered where one builds upon the next one. The one you want to start with is really your silver package. The silver package is like the Hyundai. It is the bare essential. And maybe they're doing some of the work. You're not doing it all yourself. You might be just giving them some input of what needs to be done. However, you might not be doing it yourself. Or it could be where you're doing it, but it's the basic essentials that they need to be able to stay organized, get up to date. They're not keeping all the receipts in a bag any longer. So think about what that silver package would be. Then you want to offer a gold package. The gold package is like the Volvo. It is where the majority of your clients will actually be hiring you. This meets their really fundamental needs. It might focus on financial housekeeping, plus it will keep them informed about the financial health of their business. Consider it that way. And then the diamond package, that Tesla, is almost like done for you. You're coming in as a strategic partner. You might emphasize budgeting, forecasting, as well as growth strategies, and having access to you in a way that is more personalized than maybe the silver and the gold packages. So those are some of the things to look at as you're starting to develop these packages. Some questions you want to ask yourself is, what type of business fits into these 3 packages? So who would it be for? Because there's going to be different needs with a solo firm as opposed to a multi-partner firm. Then you want to look at what specific pain points does a potential client struggle with when they first meet you. Start to become aware of that so you can talk to them about those needs. That'll help you figure out their wants, their needs, and desires. And then the third thing to start to look at, and this is highly, highly important and the biggest mistake that most accounting professionals make, is that they focus too much on what they do, the apps they use, the features that they bring to the table, the type of QuickBooks service that they have, whether it's desktop or QBO and all these other things. Instead of that, you want to focus on the benefits and the outcomes of each package. What is possible for that attorney once you solve their problem? That is the most important thing that they need to know before they hire you, is not just how you're going to do what you do, but they need to trust that you have the skill set, the expertise, that you can actually come to the table with suggestions and recommendations to help them plug up money leaks or avoid problems maybe in the future that they don't even realize might be coming down the line. But you know, as a skilled professional working with attorneys, what they might need to anticipate in the future. So that is how to get started from soup to nuts with developing your packages. And Jonathan, I know you wanted to bring in some specific things that had to do with the legal aspect.
Well, so if you think about, and I love this, who's the ideal client? I want to make a few comments on that.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the ideal client. A lot of times we look at some really basic things like, it's a small law firm, so we're talking solos to 2 to 3s, and she's, a principal attorney or whatever. But the thing you really want to drill down into is different sort of variants, which is maybe you want to look with female attorneys, or maybe you want to work with attorneys that do certain types of work, or niches within attorneys. Because remember, if I'm a personal injury attorney that is a contingency biller, meaning that my income is built on the outcome of a case and a settlement, that behaves and has very different accounting demands than that of a litigator or that of an estate planner. And when that estate planner or that litigator or that personal injury attorney interacts with you, you knowing more about how they operate and bill and whatnot, and the nuance and the vernacular makes you more of the expertise, which allows you to then tailor those packages. So when you talk about ideal client, you have to think about like who inspires you a little bit, because the more you can become upmarket and talk about the value of what you bring, not necessarily what you do, but the value, the more the attorney will value you, and the more willing they are to pay more money. Attorneys act like they're price sensitive, but they really aren't if they see the value in what you bring. They may have a little sticker shock at the beginning, but if they can tether the output and the value of the output, they kind of then don't really care. I shouldn't say, maybe that's an overstatement, but
I'm going to say it in a different way. Is that okay, Jonathan?
Yeah, sure.
What they need to see is that what they are paying you is going to be less than how much they can potentially make by bringing you onto their team.
Yeah, that's a piece of it, Loren, but that's a piece of it. But what I'm trying to get at is sometimes, and I deal with attorneys and money all the time.
Sure.
Sometimes if they see how it's going to benefit them, the money conversation becomes moot for the most part. You can't be ridiculous, but the point I'm trying to make is if you can articulate that value to them, all of the semantics of what you charge becomes a lesser part of the conversation, because they've already bought into your process and they've already seen the value you bring. Now, when we talk about packaging for law firms in these different tiers, there's 4 things that lawyers need that can be packaged that we've seen from a LeanLaw perspective. One, of course, is the monthly reconciliation, payroll, the basic accounting stuff. That's number one, and that can be a piece of it. But there's also outsourced invoicing, So if you have a LeanLaw QuickBooks Online environment, you have the ability to do all of their invoicing and all of their collections. So they can take something that they've insourced and outsource it to you, and you can productize that. So all they need to do is put their time in, make sure we know what expenses are tied to what clients, you produce the draft invoices, attorney approves them, and off they go, and you then go collect that money on their behalf. That's a huge value add to them. The third thing is trust, reconciliation, and compliance. So one of our LeanLaw accounting pros, Brandy Derrick, does this on behalf of her clients and charges for it. A really critical, important piece that lawyer's saying, how do I make sure that I am in compliance with my bar association? And you can go to the respective states and actually say, hey, bar association, can you give me the general guidelines, and make sure that you understand that for that attorney practicing in that particular state. And then the last product is compensation reporting. So for a solo, compensation reporting is not a big deal. But the minute you start getting multiple partners in, all of a sudden you're starting to look at, well, what piece of the pie is mine? And there tends to be a really critical reports that's needed on a monthly basis about what attorney is compensated in what way. And sometimes it's really easy, and it's just basically the firm takes out a piece and the lawyers get a certain component, but other times it gets very complex because they have partner sharing pools and things of that nature. So asking about compensation and how lawyers compensate themselves up front in your conversations is really important, because it becomes an opportunity. But there's 4 different ways that you can begin to put components of packaging into these different tiers, because what was it? The bronze package was the entry one, Loren?
I said silver, but they were all good. Bronze is
so
fine
the
too.
entry level package might be just the bookkeeping services, and then you add outsourced invoicing, and then you add trust compliance, and then you add, compensation reporting, and all of a sudden you get the big package, the Tesla, as Loren liked to call it. So I'm gonna kind of move the conversation a little forward, because we're getting towards the end and we've got some stuff that we're talking too much, Loren. The fundamental question is, how do you get paid for stuff you normally don't get paid for, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to get at. And so how do you help coach people with that they can identify those things that they're not getting paid for, and how do you get them into the packages?
Sure. The very first thing to help them get into the packages is to have a value conversation. That is where you're asking questions that focus on the value of what you have to offer, and helping decide what their wants, needs, and desires are. I'm going to just drop a link to, I put together the entire value conversation for you. All the questions, I know you're busy. All you need to do is grab that particular link, and you'll get the whole script for having an engaging conversation that's focused on value instead of what you do. That's the first piece. The second piece is that I have what I call a value checklist, which are the things that you're either writing off or you simply don't know how to charge for. There are 7 things in the value checklist, and I'm going to go through each one of them briefly, because I know we have only so much time. The first one is response. Think about how quickly you want to respond to someone. In the silver package, maybe it is a 48-hour initial response to someone's query when they ask you something. With the Tesla package, the VIP package, that might be that you respond by the end of the business day. In the gold package, it might be a 24-hour response. Also, how do you respond to them? In the silver package, maybe they can only email you. In the gold package, it might be emails and phone calls. And in the VIP package, it's any way they want: emails, texts, or phone calls. So think about how you want to have communication set up. The second thing to look at is resources. Resources has to do with what are some of those things that are hidden that you actually do for your clients. Maybe it's setup. Maybe you're setting them up on QBO and you don't normally charge for that. You could charge a $1,500 setup fee just to get them set up correctly on QBO. Or it's possible that you do some training for some of their admin staff on how to be able to correctly put data into QBO. So think about some of those additional setups, trainings, resources you offer. The other part is consultations. When you meet with your clients and you're reviewing something with them, that has significant value. A lot of times it's not charged for. Do you meet with your silver clients maybe on a quarterly basis? With your gold clients, it's monthly. And then with your VIP clients, it could be that you meet with them weekly or as needed. Think about that. Your knowledge of setup, training, and consultation is highly valuable. This is where you start to position yourself as that trusted advisor. The third step is resolution. Imagine, think about the amount of time you are spending on customer support every now and then regarding account issues. You deserve to be paid for that time that you're doing it on a client's behalf. And we can bring that into a value-priced package. The fourth thing is remedy. This means that you might be teaching them how to use software, or maybe they went in, did something themselves, they made a mistake. Now you have to do some forensic bookkeeping to figure out where they made their error and be able to fix it. This focuses on the technical aspects of what you might be doing to correct or remedy something. The fifth one has to do with relationships. These are the connections you have. It's like opening up your Rolodex. They might come to you because they need a marketing person. Well, you might know a marketing person that specializes in attorneys, and you can go ahead and make that referral to them. That it shows that you vetted someone, they have more trust, they're more likely to use that. So how do you become a connector for them? By helping them with referral sources, other service providers that are complementary, or connecting them with other experts that they need connections to. Number 6 is write-offs. Those are the little things you might give away for free because you just don't feel that it's worth nickel and diming them for every single thing. It might be different things for each person that is listening to us. But think about those things that you write off simply because it was only 5 or 10 minutes, but 5 or 10 minutes over time adds up to a lot of your valuable time. And then the 7th thing in the value checklist is reconcile. That's accommodating their various needs. It might be that someone wants you to work on site instead of on QBO desktop, or their technology doesn't necessarily align with yours. You need to be able to make some adaptations for that, or some other specifics. So those are the 7 parts of the value checklist: is response, resources, resolution, remedy, relationships, write-offs, and reconcile.
I want to make some comments, but I want to ask Loren your opinion on this. Elaine asked, which level do you see processing vendor bills and paying for them? Meaning, I guess what Elaine's trying to get at is that a basic? Is it a step up? And where do you see that in the queue? Let me rephrase that question. If Elaine was your client and you were coaching and she said, I'm trying to put my packages together and I find myself paying bills and dealing with vendors on behalf of my clients, how would you coach her into using that as a function of packaging?
Great question, Elaine. The first thing is you have to know who your ideal client is, because different clients have different wants, needs, and desires. That's the first thing. The second thing is I wouldn't do that in the basic silver package. That's an advanced level service. I am not sure that I would do that in the gold package either. If the majority of your clients need that service, but it can be very time intensive, then you put in the gold if most of them need it. However, if it's only an exceptional few, I actually would throw that into the diamond or VIP client package. And this is actually something that Jonathan just came up about a week ago as I was meeting with an accounting professional and we were creating her packages. That very need came up. We ended up putting it in her diamond package for her VIP clients.
And I want to make the comment too that certain things have more value. So you would never put trust compliance in your basic packages because trust compliance is so darn important to a law firm, and you have some liability that you can't make a mistake, right? And the law firm certainly doesn't want to see you make a mistake. So there's just real value in that, in getting it right, making sure that the bar association is complied with, et cetera, et cetera. So that inherently is of such value that it's always going to be in a bigger package, right? Whereas running payroll in an automated payroll system, I mean, it's not that hard, right? If you have QuickBooks Payroll built into the system and everyone's set up, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm underestimating the complexity of payroll, but it's really, I think it's really to, about those wants, needs, and desires, but there's also some relationship to the complexity and the importance of the task. We only have 11 minutes left, so I want to not miss this question, which is, how do you, so we've talked a lot about packages, and we've talked about this value conversation, and we've talked about, all these different nuances of becoming this trusted advisor. How do you coach these folks? I mean, I get how you've clearly said how you've coached them to put structure around it, but now they're selling it. Now they're sitting in front of an attorney or some other prospective buyer of their services, and they're having to stand behind this new, maybe it feels expensive to them. Like maybe they're like, wow, I've never charged this much, right? We said, Susan said $350, and then we said, well, maybe it should be $1,500, right? That's a 5X or 4X multiple. So how do you coach people to get it so they can stand up there and pitch this and sell this and feel good about it and accept the outcome, right? Good, bad, or ugly.
Sure. It's part of where my sports psychology comes in, Jonathan. I love the fact that when I am working closely with an accounting professional and we're shifting their business model from charging by the hour into value pricing, it's going to bring up conflicting values within themselves as well as conflicting beliefs. It's a lot about mindset. You first have to believe that you are absolutely worth it and that the value of what you offer to them, you recognize that. You have to buy into it first and see the value before you can expect them to see the value of what you have to offer. I will let you know that when you first start making this shift, it is uncomfortable. I will say that you want to actually practice having a value conversation with maybe people that are inquiring with you, but they're not really an ideal client. Practice on them first, getting used to the questions and asking them to engage with you with someone that you're not as attached to, whether they become a client first, or practice it with someone else who is maybe an accountability partner to be able to get comfortable. Athletes actually put more time into training and practice than they do into actually competing. This is where you want to take that athlete's mindset and be prepared. The more prepared you are, the better you'll be able to do that. And when you get to the point of talking about the price of what it would be to do that, it's what I call the gulp factor. You want to take a big gulp of air, and then you want to say your price and then be quiet. Because it's going to be uncomfortable saying that rate first when it's new to you. But also, as we talked about earlier, being able to slow down the engagement process. Instead of selling everything in your big packages right off the bat, start off with simply doing an assessment that maybe takes 2 weeks to a month to really go in and do that checklist. It's similar to when you take your car into the mechanic. They're not just going right under the hood and fixing. They're doing a diagnostic, then they're reaching out to you, they're letting you know all the different problems. You talk with them about which ones are prioritized and which ones you can postpone for later to be able to budget for it. This is the same thing. The mechanic doesn't do any work until they get approval from you to do that work. You want to be able to take that same approach with doing an assessment and doing that 36-point check, being able to give them all the information and then being able to triage with them what is the best approach and what to focus on first and what to do next. Then you do the cleanup. It really gets your hands in there and it lets you see how messy it is. From there, you can actually know exactly which packages will best serve them. But by that time, they've invested time as well as money in working with you. You've gained trust. Enrolling them into your packages is not going to be a sell because they already have an experience of how you work and whether it's a good fit as to whether to work more closely together or not. So once again, slow it down, assessment, cleanup, and then packages. It's no longer a sell. It's now you get to decide whether they're an ideal client and you want to work with them, or whether you just want to do possibly the assessment and send them on their way, or the assessment and the cleanup and then let them go.
I want to make one comment, then I've got 3 questions that we've got to answer. I'll tell you a real world example of pricing and how it's uncomfortable. So I have a client right now that essentially wants 4 LeanLaw seats, but she really, based on our pricing model, needs 8, meaning she has a bunch of users that won't ever use LeanLaw, but they need to track time and someone does it on their behalf. And she's like, why do I have to call her back later today, and I know she's going to be it's going to be a tense call. And probably 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I would have been really nervous for this call, and I might have given her a discount and tried to win her and say, okay. Now I'm like, she's not a good client. If she doesn't value how we price and recognize that this is, there was some thought put into it, and if you look at the revenue of that firm, that this is not a big expenditure, and she really wants to not engage LeanLaw because of $75 a month, $100 a month, she's not a good client, and it's just going to be problematic. And I used to have a lot of tension with that. And now I'm going to the call saying, that's our pricing. That's what it is. Carla, you make a really, really good point. And I know that you work, I don't know if you work exclusively with attorneys, but I know that you work abundantly with attorneys, probably not the right word. But she's made the point, does it make sense for lawyers to have a basic package if it doesn't include trust account reconciliation? And the answer is probably no. But are you going to help them be compliant with the Bar Association? No, not in the basic one, meaning filling out paperwork and reports. But are you going to make sure that you're doing the 3-way reconciliation? Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of your value add of servicing law firms, that you do it. But the question just becomes, how complex is it, and what other things that you may do? So you're right to call that out. Susan says a really, really good question, which I want to ask to you, Loren, which is, okay, I follow all your advice. I'm paraphrasing, Susan. I follow all your advice, and I create my packages, my 36-point checklist, and I've practiced my value conversation, and I now say this is how I work. But I've got 25 clients that are working on the old model.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
What do I do with them?
Yeah, that is great. What you want to do is first get used to figuring out your packages with new clients coming in, having those value conversations with new clients coming in. Start with them, and you'll gain so much insight as to where some of the pushback might be, where some of the resistance is, where maybe you didn't show enough value, they still have questions. Once you get comfortable doing it with new clients, then start to circle back to your older clients, giving them a letter that you're changing your business model a little bit. Let them know how it benefits them regarding budgeting. It'll be more timely. It'll be more advisory services. So make it client focused, and that you'll be reaching out to them to schedule an appointment. Then get an appointment on the calendar with them to have a value conversation. I put a link to the value conversation in the chat, and you can go ahead and grab it for free and then just tweak it so it's yours, but it's businesssuccesssolution.com/script. Just go ahead and grab the value conversation. Have that with them. There will be questions because they're used to doing it an old way and now they're doing it a new way. What you want to show is how it's beneficial to them. And it might be that your silver or basic package is similar to what they currently are doing, but now it's a monthly set fee, as opposed to it might change each month because the amount of hours that you're working with them. Yeah. So my guess is with most of them, they might qualify at least for the silver package if they're more budget sensitive, but the majority of them will actually roll over with you because you've already provided so much value. You're just changing your business model a little bit and show them how it's going to be more client-centered, where you're going to have more consulting services. You're not going to charge for some of the little extras that you might have charged for before. And it's really coming from a place of partnership.
Yeah, and we had something similar with LeanLaw, which was we changed our pricing, and I had a bit of panic with it. And what came out of it was we lost one client, and I knew we were going to lose her because she didn't want to pay for QuickBooks. But the rest of everyone just went to the new pricing model because they saw the value in what we were doing. We showed them some new features, and they just moved over. And we gave them some incentives to buy a year ahead and to keep some old pricing. But in the end, we just changed the prices and it worked out. Okay, Loren, we've got to wrap this up. So Loren's going to say something right here, and I'm going to tell all of you who are on this call right now to do what she tells you to do and follow through, because what can they do next, Loren?
If you got value from what we talked about today, you are really looking to move away from the billable hour, being able to productize your business, being positioned as that trusted expertise, then I offer a complimentary strategy session where we look at what it is that you want to achieve, where things currently are, some of the challenges, opportunities. If it looks like a good fit of working together, we'll talk about that as well. If that's something that interests you, I have only 3 consult strategy sessions set aside because I'm going to be speaking at a women's conference next week, and I'm going to be gone for the whole week. So I have 3 strategy sessions set aside. If you want to talk about how to take your business to the next level, focusing on advisory as opposed to compliance, go ahead and go to businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk, and we will get that conversation scheduled.
Okay, so it's 2:00. Ms. Loren, thank you so much. This was really fun. And thank you to all the attendees.